Hello, and welcome to the Voices United Conference online. My name is Max Nolan, and I have the pleasure today to introduce this session that you're about to see, entitled G.U.M.B.O, Great Urban Music Teachers Bring Opportunities. And I'm so happy to welcome our presenter, Ann Smith. Ann Smith is an elementary music teacher in Alexandria, Virginia. She is an author, composer, playwright, and choral conductor. Ms. Smith studied music therapy at Howard University. She has completed Level 2 ORF certification. She has presented at state and national conferences on gospel music, arts integration, and teaching music in urban environments. She has written curriculum for VH1 Behind the Music on protest music and has authored a book on teaching gospel music in the classroom. We're so happy she has volunteered to share her wisdom with us today. We hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome to G.U.M.B.O, Great Urban Music Teachers Bring Opportunities. I'm Ann Smith, and I will be your host for the next few minutes. Thank you so much for taking your time to join me today. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But let me begin by telling you a little bit about myself. As I stated before, my name is Ann Smith. I studied music therapy at Howard University. I have a bachelor's in human relations from Trinity College, a master's in education and teaching from Regent University, an EDD I'm studying for my EDD in curriculum and instruction. Right now I have an EDS in curriculum and instruction, but I am working on my EDD at Liberty University. I have over 25 years of experience in music education, and I've completed levels 1 and 2 in ORF. Unfortunately, this summer, level 3 was out of the question. I currently conduct 2 church choirs, one for young people and one for older people. And I work at a pre-K-5 school. I previously worked at a pre-K through 8 IB school. I have written plays. I'm a poet. I'm a composer. I am an equity liaison for Alexandria City Public Schools. So there are probably as many reasons for your attending this workshop as there are people who are attending. If I were in a face-to-face situation, I'd ask you by show of hands to talk about who was new to the profession, who'd been here for a while, who was a seasoned teacher. But my question today is, why are you here? What is your real hope for gaining from this workshop? Because this is a workshop. It's not just a sit back and relax situation. I want you to be engaged. I'm not an expert. There is no expert in this field. We are all learning and we're working together. So what do you want to hope, your hopes and for this particular workshop are important? Are you a beginning teacher? Someone who is looking to find some tips or tricks to find out what is going on, especially in this brand new situation that we're all in? Are you a mid-year, mid-career teacher who knows the ropes, but you're looking for some new things to freshen up your teaching, some new ideas? Or are you a seasoned professional who is looking to add some new spices to your recipe that you've already got down and have been using for years? Well, whatever your reason for being here, I appreciate it, and I want to say welcome. So let's see what's cooking. At this point, you're probably wondering, what on earth are we talking about when we say gumbo? Well, let me give you a little bit of background. Gumbo is a spicy stew that is usually associated with New Orleans or Creole cooking. Now, there are some basic ingredients, such as shrimp or chicken, that you can find in traditional gumbo, but there is one thing that is common, if you really want to call it gumbo, and that is okra. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of okra, but that's the beauty of gumbo. You can put in what you want and you can keep out what you want, and it's still gumbo. Regardless of what the books try to tell us, we all know that our classrooms are not the same. They are made up of lots of different languages, cultures, ethnicities, economic status, genders, experiences. All of these things add to the flavors and the spices in our classroom, similar to the flavors and spices and ingredients of gumbo. Now, there's no one formula or recipe that can give you the perfect recipe for your classroom or choir. What I'm going to do, hopefully, is help you to add some things to your recipe to make a new treat for you and your musicians. In case you haven't noticed, I tend to do things a little bit differently. However, I always connect things to the standards. And over the past few months, we have been forced to look at teaching music in a new way, a way that's very different for most of us, because most of us have focused on the performing aspect of music. In fact, when we discuss music education, that's what most of people on the outside are looking at, the performance. But in this new way of learning and teaching, we have to look at some of our other standards. And today I just want to talk about the creating and responding aspects. Now we know there are other standards, there are other things that we can do. Again, I just want to provide you with a few simple ingredients that might spice up. You might use them, you might not. Remember, this is your creation. Looking at these other standards, I think that this is a great opportunity to show how vital music and the arts are in the lives of all students. But let's be honest, most of our students are not going to be performers. And even if they were, the past few months have shown us what a difficult life performing can be. Yet, with the internet, we have opportunities that are beyond imagination. There are blogs, there are video blogs, there are IG, there are TikTok, and all kinds of things that I know absolutely nothing about. But these are a part of our students' lives. So we have to learn to incorporate that into our classroom. In other words, add a little spice into our gumbo. We have to move out of our comfort zone. I'm going to move you into a new comfort zone. So I'm going to ask you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, what that means is some of these things are going to be absolutely foreign to you, and that's okay. Some of these things are going to make you think, but that's not what I signed on for. That's okay. We're in this together. We're working together. And we're going to cook with the ingredients that you have, not necessarily the ingredients I have. It's going to cook at your own pace, at your own race. Remember, I don't like okra, but if you ask a traditional gumbo cook, there has to be okra. So let's get ready to cook. Sometimes the questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. Now, I have to put a mini disclaimer in here. When we're talking about race and culture, Dr. Seuss is a discussion that people are having across the country, quite honestly, about whether we should be using Dr. Seuss because some of the cartoons or attitudes can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, some of them very demeaning or negatively. Again, that is a personal conversation. That is a school conversation. That's a conversation, though, that needs to be had. But the questions, such as Dr. Seuss, are complicated, but the answers are quite simple. We are here to teach. That's what we have. We have children. We want to educate children. And we use music as our tool. That's the answer. That's how simple what it comes down to. As simple as that. At the end of the day, we are talking about children and we are there to provide an education. So, I use the term urban in the title. Great urban music teachers bring opportunities. So my question to you right now is how you see the term urban. Because more and more we have classrooms that look very different than they did 30, 40, 50 years ago. And what was considered an urban school might not be located in a city. It might be in a suburb and be an incredibly diverse high school, elementary school, middle school. I use the term urban as an acronym. Do you see them as unruly, rude, belligerent, aggressive, and negative, or untapped reservoirs of brilliance, ability, who are noteworthy? Now that seems like a really simple question, but it really starts with us, the attitudes we bring into our classrooms, into our choral programs. What do our students, what do our musicians bring to the table? Because they are musicians. Musicians are people who make music. And from the very beginning, that should be established to each and every child, to each and every student. You always hear people of a certain age say, oh no, I can't sing. I don't know how to do that. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you're not a musician. There are all kinds of things that you can do within music that don't involve performing. And again, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to really tap into those reservoirs of brilliance. So let's take a look at your ingredients. This is your gumbo. Who are your musicians? Are they all male? Are they all female? And we now know that we have other considerations when we talk about gender. depending on where you are, depending on what level you are teaching, who you're working with. Who are they? Where do they come from? What's their culture? What's their background? What language do they speak at home? Now that seems like a simple question, but to say looking at someone and reading their name does not tell you that they all come from the same place. Just because everyone speaks Spanish, it doesn't mean they all come from one country. Why are they here? Why are they in this group? Is it forced or is it by choice? Are they here to explore or are they here to participate? What is their musical background? And I apologize, I just noticed I messed up the musical background of the students. And I'm going to stop for a second and actually use that. I tell my kids all the time that nobody's perfect. And sometimes I do things that I would call a planned mistake. And I could have said that that was my planned mistake, but it really wasn't a mistake. But it lets them know that it's okay to make a mistake, that everyone makes a mistake. Musical background, when you talk about that, have they ever performed in public? Or do they only sing in their cars or in the shower? I've had so many parents over the years say, I never knew they could sing because they don't even sing in front of their families. It's not a part of them. It's something they want to do, so they signed up for the class if you're in middle or high school, but it's not something that they do on the outside. So this is the only exposure that they're getting. And then there's one that we don't normally take into consideration, and that is how do students learn academically or musically? This is important because we do a lot of things academically in our programs without thinking about it. There's reading, there's math, sometimes there's science. We have to use our bodies. We have to talk a little bit sometimes about how our throats work, how we are breathing from the diaphragms, things like that. I know that I've been in programs where I've said, okay, I need you to relax your elbows. And they're saying, what? Because the students had never, they heard arms, but actually breaking them down into fingers and hands and wrist and elbow and shoulder or forearm. That was not something they were particularly used to. How do they learn? Do they learn by ear? Do they learn by rote? If we have auditory learners, they're not going to be as comfortable with the reading of sheet music. How we present things is important. Knowing your musicians, who they are and what they do, will make it better. Do they have an IEP? Are there learning differences? Do they forget their glasses? Do they need to be in the front row? All of these things need to be taken into consideration when you start to mix your choir, your chorus, or your gumbo. I want you to listen to something. This is one of my favorite warm-ups, and this is the way I would normally teach it. When I teach it, I have done this with students as young as 3 and with my older choir where I have people who are literally in their 80s. It is a warm-up. So with the younger ones, I would say, and I want you to do this, take the string and pull it at the top of your head because you're going to pull up and you're going to sing. That's how we start to breathe properly. Just making sure they pull that string up and bring your hand down. Repeat after me. We'll listen first. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, if we were all together, I'd have you sing it right with me after that. That's why I get confused, because it's the first time I've done it this way. However, when I do that with some students, think for a second about why that might be confusing. Not just the auditory part, but because we're going up and down, we're using the numbers. So first you have to actually know how to count to 8, which sounds pretty simple, but it's not always, depending on the age, depending on what they've done, their experiences. We can never assume that someone can do something. So if you look at this, you see, oops, sorry, you'll see, and I can't get it back, that I had written it on the board. I would write the numbers out. I've also done it in a ladder, going up and down, back up and down. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, if you want to really get creative with it, you can go backwards. 8, 8, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 7, 8. Going through that, you can break it into parts. So even though it starts as a very simple activity, you're bringing that opportunity to bring students to their next level musically, but you're breaking it down. Now, educationally, we'd say, oh, that's how we differentiate. That's exactly what it is. We are taking it, we are building on that, and we're moving on. Now, I know I've gotten to this slide, and I know a lot of people have already read it, but I'm going to read it. I am only one, but I'm still one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something I can do. Depending on the size of your group, it is impossible for you to do everything all the time. So all of those things that I was talking about earlier, meeting all of those needs of every single student, that's unreasonable to expect of yourself. But you can do something. We can all do something. We can all do better. Remember, we're all learning. We're all making this better for each other and for ourselves. So now let's talk about mixing the root. Why is this important? Well, every good brew is the base in a gumbo. You gotta have a good base. If your base isn't good, you can forget the rest of it. For a teacher, a conductor, a choral director, we are looking at 3 aspects: academic success, cultural competence, and social justice for all students. In other words, something that is called culturally responsive teaching. Now, some of you may have heard that term before, but may have dismissed it thinking it did not apply to your program. Whether you are in a classroom, whether you are conducting a community organization, Culture matters. It matters, as we have seen over the past few months. It is a part of our nation and part of that gumbo. I like the term gumbo rather than what we used to call the melting pot, because when you melt something, you lose and it all mixes together and they become one thing. Whereas with the gumbo, you get in the pot together, you're mixing together, but you work together to make it better, to make it spicy, to change it a little bit. And it's okay, and this is good, and I like this. So we are looking at academic success, cultural competence, and social justice for all students. Now, this is not about getting rid of the traditional program. That's absolutely not what we're talking about. We are talking about enhancing what you already do. I think one of the fears that happens when we start talking about adding the cultural piece is that, well, we have to do everything according to race, that we have to only look at this. And that's not what it's about. It's about expanding our palette. It's about broadening your taste buds. If you go to France, most of us are going to try an authentic beignet. You're not going to go to Krispy Kreme. You're broadening your taste buds. It doesn't mean that Krispy Kreme is not wonderful. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy it, but it means you're trying something new and expanding your palate. And that's what we're talking about with cultural competence. Now, this particular song has a little bit of a history. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years when I am in music workshops, a lot of time there is very little music. Again, because we're doing it like this, you're going to have to listen to me. Sorry. If we were all together, we would definitely be making music. This particular song, Latin music, I wrote many, many years ago. And I wrote it when I was working with a group of students who were in middle school. It was a sixth grade class, and there were about 60 sixth graders and me, and most of them didn't want to be there. And I was new to teaching middle school, so I was strictly going by the curriculum. And the kids were not having it. They were just so disinterested. So one day I just said, okay, so what do you like? And they didn't initially volunteer information, but they did eventually start to say certain things. And honestly, it was music I'd never heard of. I went and had to do some research about different types of music. And as you notice, I use the word Latin music. Well, right now, because it fits the beat, I had to put the rhythm. And I explained that when I came back with that. And the song works. It is very simple, as you'll see in a minute. But I also got to pick it apart. That finding out that for every musical genre in Latinx music, there is a dance that goes with it. So we could talk about salsa, we could talk about mambo, we could talk about cumbia, we could talk about tango, samba. The kids were like, okay, when I messed it up, if I messed up a word and they corrected me, that was fine. One of the things we have to remember though, don't automatically assume that your students, because they come from a certain background, are going to know the answers. Again, every culture does not do everything. Everybody doesn't mambo. Everybody doesn't salsa. When we got down to the instruments, we got to look at marimba, maracas, claves, congas, timbales, shakeres. Wait a minute, shakeres? There's something in African culture that did that. That was the first thing I heard. So we started to make some connections. And then at the last part, we started talking about individuals. Most of them had heard of Celia Cruz. Some had heard of Carlos Santana. Very few had heard of Hector Lavoe. So that provided an opportunity. Okay, tell me something. I got some research out of them for this. I got a homework assignment. Talk to me about salsa. Talk to me about instruments. Talk to me about people. They got to bring their own experiences into that. When we talk about cultural competence, these are the things that you are fulfilling, that you're not asking them to forget who they are, but to bring it into the pot. So, very simple. Sure, you will recognize the song, and then we'll talk about that in a second as well. Latin music makes me want to dance and sing. I like the rhythm, I like the flavor. I like it all, yes, everything. I love to salsa, I love to mambo. I love cumbia and tango. I love to henyo, I love to samba. The music makes me want to go. Latin music makes me want to dance and sing. I like the rhythm, I like the flavor. I like it all, yes, everything. We play percussion on the marimba and the maracas and claves. I beat the congas and the timbales. And don't forget the shakeres. Latin music makes me want to dance and sing. I like the flavor, I like the rhythm. Messed it up. I like it all, yes, everything. Carlos Santana, Celia Cruz, and don't forget Hector Lavoe. Carlos Santana, Celia Cruz, and don't forget Hector Lavoe. Latin music makes me want to dance and sing. I like the rhythm, I like the flavor. I like it all, yes, everything. Now that last line, I repeated it because I actually wanted them to do some composing, very simple composing. Find who? Instruments? Dances? No, people, performers who could finish out that line. So the first time I did it exactly as I did it for you, I sang it twice. And they were like, there's nothing there. Where's the rest of it? I'm like, you're going to create it. So we had a very simple starting of composition, research and composition on their end. Because if you use the word composing right away, it's sometimes intimidating. But if you give little chunks, little spaces, things that can work. And somebody came back, I remember, and changed it and said, well, and don't forget Hector Lavoe, you need to put Hector Lavoe at the end. That doesn't work. You need to change it to this. And I think, if I remember correctly, they added Selena, or they added someone. So you're actually bringing them into the process of what's going on. Now this one, poster, picture, this is George Bridge Tower. The George Bridge Tower was a contemporary of Beethoven. In fact, he received an endorsement from Beethoven because if you remember, at that time period, you had to have a letter in order to get to certain places. And he got his endorsement, his letter from Beethoven, which I think is a pretty good reference. I do not hesitate to recommend to you the bearer, Bridgetower, a very capable virtuoso who has a complete command of his instrument. Now, this is to show subtly, or even more overtly if you'd like, that people of color play, compose, and are interested in music other than rhythm and blues. In other words, there are composers outside of Joplin and Ellington. Yet very few of us found out about these African American composers. And I have to admit, I didn't either. It took some research on my part as well. When we talk about cultural competence, it means we're going to have to go outside of our comfort zone. We're going to have to take some steps out there on the information superhighway and find composers or performers that are not always represented and not simply bring them to light for a special program at a special time of the year, i.e., February, but show them just like this that Beethoven recognized this man, that Chevalier was recognized and was a contemporary of Mozart. And at the end, I'm going to give you some resources that you'll be able to do some of this research a little bit easier. Sometimes when students walk into school, we're asking them to forget who they are so that we can make them who we think they should be. From culture to language to food and even changing their names, we subtly send the message that there's something wrong with them. Our job is to show them who they really are and how special and unique they are. Through authentic resources, we can show them all of the beauty of their culture. And this is for every child, for every culture, that we are a mix in that gumbo. It's not just one thing that tastes good. It is the blend. It is bringing it all together. The greatest good that you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but reveal to them their own. Benjamin Disraeli. And that's a really wonderful quote for teachers that so often we just want to give them, as if they are empty vessels. But they actually have a lot to share. But sometimes we have to show them how important they are. We have to show them how special they are. Their uniqueness is okay. This is a quick activity that can be adapted in a variety of ways. It can be used for substitutes. It can be used as a warm-up, for note reading, for symbol identification. It can be as complicated or as complex as you would like it to be. Ultimately, I have also used it in sentence strip sentences as it says at the top, in centers, where I simply write it on sentence strips, or I've given them stories to look at. And this particular one, there are two ways of doing it. One, you can put the symbol in. Beyonce was sharp at the BET Awards. The next one, I thought he sounded, and sorry, that wasn't great, flat. Or you can switch it to the blank concert was in unison. So what would they say? The half concert? Well, grammatically, we know that's not correct. So they would eventually get to the whole concert was in unison, and they would work in what that meant. So it's a great, quick way. It can also be used as a quick assessment. Can you read this? Can you put in small groups, have them work in pairs if we ever get back into contact where we can do this? And actually, you could still do this. If we go into a classroom situation, this can be in distance learning, that we are writing this. What does this sentence say? They don't have to touch, but they are interacting with another person. That can be done through social distancing. So we have to start thinking also of creative ways to engage and teach and bring our students on. The next thing is something that I think many of you have seen at one time or another in one way or another. I've said it before and we're going to hear it again. It's a new day. We've got to think about this a new way. We have to start with ourselves. That I like to say that I am a teacher of music rather when I'm in the classroom rather than a music teacher. When I'm doing my choirs outside of school, I'm a music teacher. My goal is to teach the music. Do I add some of these other things in? Absolutely. But that's not my focus. But when I'm in the classroom, I am a teacher, as you see why I teach music, first of music. And we know that music is science, it's mathematical, it's foreign language, it's physical education, it is art. We are going to see in this new day, new way, how important it is that we start making connections. And music, I firmly, honestly believe, is one of the best tools that we have at our disposal to bring together all of these experiences for students on a variety of levels, social, emotional. We need to bring together students, parents, people, cultures, administrators. Everybody needs to understand what we do. But we first need to accept that it's a new day and we've got to do it in a new way. This particular song is a gospel song, and I have to um, make sure that I include this because when I said earlier, I don't think I mentioned that a few years ago, I wrote a book on teaching gospel music in classrooms. And one of the things I've done across the country is I've presenting gospel music in the classroom at state, local, national conferences. This song is a gospel song, and I won't go into the whole realm of gospel music, but what I will say is that we ignore gospel music and often use the separation of church and state, but yet I guarantee you that every high school choir in this country knows the Hallelujah chorus. So I'm going to stop with that. Let's do gospel music one on that. This original is by Hezekiah Walker, if you choose to look it up if you're not familiar with it. And if you look at it, it simply says, I need you, you need me, we're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me, we're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I think that is an incredible message, and I have done it first with my church choir. But I also found that I really wanted to bring it to my students in school. So I adapted it a bit to just change one word. I need you, you need me, we're all a part of one body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of one body. It is our will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. When we talk about social justice in the classroom, it's right there. It's looking at one another, that we have a responsibility to each other, that we're all in this together, that we need each other. The second verse goes on to say, in the original, I'll pray for you, you pray for me. I changed it to I'll think of you, because often students don't think about other students. They think about themselves. Because when you say, we've all said it, how would you feel if someone did that to you? I wouldn't like it. Well, I'll think of you. You think of me. I love you. I need you to survive. And the next part says, I won't harm you with words from my mouth. Wow. I love you. I need you to survive. And then it goes back to, it is our will. I'm just going to do a quick part of the first verse so I can try to stay on time. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of one body. Stand with me. Agree with me. We're all a part of one body. It is our will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Now, the other beauty of this song is that it modulates. So, working with that, you can work on modulation, because we always want to remember, even though we're talking about academics, we're talking about cultural competence, we're talking about social justice, we are still teaching music. So we never want to lose the music in all of this. So I love this song for a variety of reasons. I love for what it says. I love the simplicity. You can add, sometimes I hear all kinds of things. I've done it with recorders for part of it. You do a wonderful arrangement. You might get an orchestra behind. I mean, there are all kinds of things. There's the modulation in here. If you're just doing with voice and piano, it's beautiful. It can break into harmony. It is a wonderful song. Can you tell I love the song? The things that make me different are the things that make me me. Piglet is so smart. When we are talking about our students, we want to celebrate differences. I often hear people say, I don't see color, I don't see race. Well, if you say that, then you've erased who I am. You've erased a part of my existence, a part of my being. The things that make me different are the things that make me me. We want to celebrate those differences. Bring those flavors into the gumbo. Make it work. All right. I skipped over my Barry Manilow thing, even though he's in there. And you see the light. Barry Manilow has this wonderful song called One Voice, Singing in the Darkness. And it grows and grows. There's a choir behind it. And it says, and still it ends up with the whole world will sing. It is a beautiful choral piece that talks about many of the things that I've tried to talk about over the past few minutes and could go on and on about, as you can probably tell. But I want you to remember that you can make a difference. You do make a difference every day with everything that you do. You touch the lives of students, you touch the lives of musicians. We do touch the future in our jobs, which makes it wonderful. I promised to talk about some composers and resources. Chorally, we have Harry Burley, who is an arranger of spirituals. Eva Jesse worked with choral music in the early 1920s. Paul Johnson again arranged with singers, choral music. Jester Harrison did a variety of genre solos, including, if you've ever heard the song Amen. Jester Harrison, which was featured with Sidney Poitier in Lilies of the Field and in other places. He was the one who composed that with his singers. Nathan Carter worked for many, many years with the phenomenal Morgan State Choir. Uh, Andre Thomas, composer, author, another musician resource that you can look up any of these people, which are simply just beginnings. And next, I have 3 websites listed where you could go for further research. Chevalier St. George um, is African classical website, which has a list of African American and Latinx classical composers. Smithsonian Folkways, if you're not familiar, has phenomenal resources for authentic resources of voices. Rather than always having a piece of music presented through a European lens, they have recordings of people doing them authentically, authentic instruments, authentic arrangements. And finally, you will have sphinxmusic.org, which is an organization which deals with Afro classical Latinx musicians. It is predominantly for instrumental, but great resource there, things that are going on. And again, there are tons and tons of resources. Once you find one, you can just start building your own library. And I certainly have things that I am willing to share if you are interested in any way. Um, you can contact me at ann.smith at acps.k12.va.us. And yes, I'm one of those geeky teachers who does check their email during the summertime. And I also have started a Teachers Pay Teachers Smart Arts Salon, and I try to put free resources in there, such as one of the things I will be putting in there is a composer list, much more complete with that. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it more than you know. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous, restful rest of the time and a great, safe, and happy new season.